Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode. So today I have Julia Young with me. So Julia is a BANT Registered Nutritional Therapist specializing in fertility. So she supports couples struggling to conceive, helping them to take proactive steps towards their dream of having a family. And she provides personalized nutrition, lifestyle support, focusing on identifying and addressing the root cause of the fertility issues. Julia's journey into this field began with her own experience, which we're going to dive way more into, and I'm so excited. She was diagnosed with PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome, and living with amenorrhea for 7 years. She faced significant challenges in conceiving naturally, and after undergoing multiple fertility treatments, including IUI, IVF, she was blessed with 2 sons. However, it was only when she discovered the transformative impact of nutrition and lifestyle and the supplements on her health. So that her periods were returning naturally. And she had this revelation that inspired her to retain as a registered nutritional therapist and help others to navigate similar challenges. So today, Julia specializes in supporting individuals facing PCOS, IVF preparation, amenorrhea, endometriosis, and secondary infertility. So reflecting on her work, Julia says that one of the best things about her job is when she hears news from a client telling her that they're pregnant. So it shows the transformation that can happen when people make changes into their diet and lifestyle. So Julia, I have some questions for you. Can you get started with a little bit more about PCOS and how it affects a lot of women and their fertility? Because I think we're all dying to hear, how do we fix this?
Sure. Okay. So it's PCOS is the most common female endocrine or hormonal disorder. So it's really, really common. Lots and lots of women have it, may not know they have it, but it's very common. And it's characterized by disrupted ovarian function. And it's really, I find the name PCOS actually quite confusing, because when you think of polycystic ovaries, it gives the sound as if there's lots of cysts on the ovaries, but actually it's not. It's to do with the follicles that you have. And a woman with polycystic ovaries has lots of follicles which almost become stuck. So you don't get this one dominant follicle that releases an egg every month. And it may be that you have lots of follicles trying to release an egg and it doesn't happen, or you get these long periods where you're not, where you're maybe ovulating every 90 days or something like that. You're not getting this sort of regular 28-day cycle that we talk about as a sort of common cycle. So it's a group of specific symptoms, and it's characterized by excess androgen hormones, which are things like our sort of male type hormones like testosterone, a lack of ovulation or no ovulation at all. You may therefore have irregular or longer menstrual cycles, and then some quite unwanted symptoms as well. So weight gain or inability to lose weight or maintain weight is very common. Acne, particularly around the jawline, is a common symptom. Excess hair in areas we don't want it, or this sort of male pattern baldness as well. And there's things like also an increased risk of diabetes, high cholesterol, and there's also association with thyroid problems, problems with the gut, and of course infertility as well. So it's a whole collection of things going on. And it's also important to note that it's not a disease, it's a syndrome. So it's a collection of symptoms rather than a specific disease as such. And in terms of how it can affect people conceiving, in a nutshell, it could take longer to get pregnant if you have polycystic ovaries. It's characterized with having a higher level of LH, which is our luteinizing hormone, and often a lower level of follicle stimulating hormone, FSH. And then again, coupled with, as I said, with these high androgen type hormones and potentially higher insulin hormone as well. With this limited follicular development, it means that egg development can't occur, or occurs, over a very longer period of time, and then you get this irregular type ovulation. So it's hard to pinpoint when you're ovulating and to know when you should be having intercourse in order to try and conceive. So that makes it particularly difficult. And obviously, if you're not ovulating at all, then pregnancy can't happen. And also we know that egg quality can be impacted by overexposure to these androgen hormones and to insulin. So women with PCOS, they often have a higher egg reserve, or AMH, anti-Müllerian hormone, which is often tested, which gives us an idea of our egg reserve. And that can be higher, but actually the quality of those eggs tends to be quite a bit lower on the whole. So that can be difficult, again, getting a successful pregnancy that way. So there's quite a lot going on with the condition.
Okay. So that's interesting that you said that. So there's so many things that can be happening. There, it sounds like there's a variety of different angles. So when I'm curious, when somebody comes to work with you, how do you get started with identifying where these issues are so that way they can have a better understanding of what's going on, and then kind of walk us through a little bit of your process and things that you do?
Yeah. So people might come to me suspecting they have the condition, or they may have been to their doctor and had, really, you need to have a transvaginal scan to see these cysts on the ovaries. You need to have some blood tests to see that you've got the higher hormone levels. And you need to have some of the characteristics to actually diagnose as polycystic ovarian syndrome. So they may come to me already being diagnosed, and they're wanting to start a family. It hasn't happened yet. And they're just told by their doctors, well, the only thing you can do is go for IVF. There's no other option. If you're not regularly ovulating, it's not happened, go to IVF. And that's where I'm saying, well, hold on a minute, there's a lot that can be done. And actually, with something like polycystic ovarian syndrome, because egg quality can suffer, a condition like a treatment like IVF or IUI, that won't have any impact on the quality of the eggs. And that's where nutrition and lifestyle come in. They can really help improve that egg quality and improve the environment in which an embryo is transferred into. So really working on that first before even thinking about fertility treatment is really important. And when they're coming to me, even though they may have had this diagnosis already of PCOS, we want to know what type of PCOS they have, what's driving their PCOS. And there's actually kind of a few main types. It's put into some various categories. So around 70% of women have this insulin resistance type PCOS, where they have high insulin levels, their blood sugar is often dysregulated, and then they potentially may struggle with their weight, and that can be an issue. So that's quite a common area where insulin is a problem for them. There is also such thing as lean PCOS, where women still have the diagnosis of PCOS, but weight isn't an issue for them. But insulin can still be a problem, but quite often it's a weight issue. So we know if it's insulin resistance type PCOS, we may have to work on stabilizing the blood sugar, for example, and working on that area. But there's other types as well. So there's inflammatory type PCOS, where it's driven by chronic inflammation, this sort of low-grade chronic inflammation that's going on in the body. There may be sort of autoimmune conditions linked with that, various other things going on. So we then want to really lower inflammation in the body. There's also a type called post-pill PCOS, which kind of says the name kind of, it says what it does on the tin kind of thing. So it's when a woman's been taking the contraceptive pill for maybe a number of years. Potentially things were all working fine before she was started the pill. Then she takes the contraceptive pill because maybe to help regulate her cycle or to improve some symptoms, or she didn't want to start a family at that point. She comes off the pill, her periods don't return, and actually there's a surge of these androgen hormones, and that's the kind of type of PCOS that she has. Or there's this adrenal PCOS, which is driven very much by stress. So women who have a very stressful lifestyle or are not coping very well with stress levels, and therefore the adrenal glands are suffering in it, and that's the driver of their PCOS. So it's important initially that we work out what is driving your PCOS, and then we can look at what we need to put in place to support them to help improve their symptoms and help support their fertility at the same time.
I think that's very interesting. So to be honest with you, I didn't know there was different. I mean, I've worked with a ton of women who have had PCOS, and that's a good bulk of, even our audience listening. But what's interesting to me is just the different variations of like where the drivers are, right? So a lot of the women that, we work with, they're these high achieving, high driven women. And of course, trauma plays into this, right? Because how'd you grow up this way? Who told you this is how your body has to be? But it's so interesting to hear you say, like, going through each of these different phases, or, identifying where's the root cause. So, and of course, nutrition plays into all of this as well. So I'm curious, when it comes to the PCOS and we identify where the factors are you looking at nutrition first? Are we looking at supplementation? what are some of the other factors that can come into play that can help people to rebalance these things, their hormones naturally, without having to search through other areas?
Yeah. I mean, so definitely, well, generally, I'd say definitely food first over supplementation. We need to make sure the diet's looking really good. There's no point spending a load of money on different supplements, hoping they're going to be a quick fix and that's going to be the cure for you. And the diet's not looking good. We need to get the food in and make sure all the nutrients are there that are needed. And for me, the supplements comes then later on down in the line. But it kind of depends on where people need the most support. So if you're not sleeping well, for example, and there's, sleep can often be a big issue with women with PCOS. If you're not sleeping well, you're tired, you won't have the motivation or the drive to make good changes with your nutrition, for example. We all know that after one poor night's sleep, our cravings for carbohydrates and more sugary type foods increases. We're craving this energy that we need because we're so tired. So our food choices don't tend to be as good as they would if we'd had a really good night's sleep. So I might say in that instance, let's work on really improving your sleep first. Once you've got the energy, once you're feeling really good through the good sleep, then we work on the food. So again, it's a really very much a personalized approach to make sure, where or similarly, if someone's really stressed, you talked about people with trauma and stress. If stress is the real driver, we might need to focus on that first. People feel more calm and relaxed, and they're able to open their mind to supporting other areas. So looking at each person individually and just thinking, where are we going to get the biggest benefit from first, and making them feel as good as they can as quickly as possible, really.
Oh, I love that. So you take that holistic approach as well, just making sure that you're diving into your person, which is so different than most people. Even like some of your lifestyle coaches or your life coaches or your health coaches, like they're kind of focused, they're not taking this holistic approach to look at everything. And I love that you're addressing other symptoms that most people wouldn't really connect the dots on as well. What are some other symptoms in that case? We're going to touch on this a little bit because now I'm curious. What are some other symptoms that having PCOS can affect in other areas, either of your life or your body? What are some other signs that they can look for besides the typical, hormonal imbalances, or I can't get pregnant, or anything of that nature? How can we expand on that a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, looking at, for example, the gut, I mean, everything starts in the gut anyway. We're always looking at gut health, really important. And there's a strong association between gut health and the gut microbiome and PCOS as well. So it's quite common that women with PCOS may have a more disrupted gut microbiome. So we might be asking questions around, what's your gut health like? Do you feel bloated? Do you feel certain foods don't agree with you? Do you get stomach pain? Things like that. Or how often are you having a bowel movement? Really important. Are you going to the toilet at least once a day? A lot of women will come to me and go, oh yeah, every other day, every few days, I'll have a bowel movement, thinking that's normal for them. But actually, we should be eliminating at least once a day, because that's how we get rid of our used hormones. It's how we get rid of our toxins. So gut health, really, really important, and looking at how that's functioning. Thyroid health, also really important. Again, there's a strong association between thyroid health and PCOS, and making sure the thyroid is optimal. And again, we often don't know that there are some signs and symptoms that your thyroid might not be functioning well, but it's quite important really to test the thyroid to make sure that it's optimal. And we know having an optimal thyroid is really important for getting pregnant and sustaining a pregnancy as well. And not just looking, I mean, in the UK, if you ask to get your thyroid tested by a doctor, they'll test just one or two thyroid markers. And really, we should be testing, 5 or 6 different markers, looking for autoimmune thyroid conditions and all that sort of things. Really important. So again, just looking at all areas of the body is important. They're not separate. Our body is not separate departments. It's one whole holistic approach, and we need to look at everything.
Yes.
Really.
Yes. And I love that, because even when you go to a specialist, so like here in the States, you go to a specialist and they're like, we're going to separate all parts of the body. Like you have somebody for the brain, you got somebody for the heart and all this. And it's like, can we ever look at things together? Like your body's whole. My head is not separated from my body, but it's
Exactly.
so true that you're saying those things, because 100% even when you go get, we have so many clients here who they'll go get their thyroid tested. And we have a lot of women who have struggled with autoimmune. I myself have been in that boat. I've had PCOS, endometriosis, all those things, and have been able to reverse a lot of that through nutrition. Now, has stress later on in my life kind of re-triggered some of those things? Absolutely. And it's just being mindful. I feel it's being very mindful, like you're saying here, the nutrition. What are you doing? How's your body operating? It's really checking those boxes, making it simple to say, okay, I'm not sleeping well. Well, what's kind of going on underneath? It's getting really honest with yourself on those as well. But I love the idea that you're also here to show people we're not separating everything. Tell your doctor, let's go for, hey, give me a bigger panel. Even down here, we'll ask for hormone panels, for some clients who will come and they've got hormone panels and it's like the basics and the bare minimum. And I'm like, so this is not enough information,
Yeah.
or they'll test just for estrogen and progesterone and testosterone. And it's like, I need your thyroid as well because they're talking to one another. Your body's always talking to one another. So I do love this. I'm curious when it comes to the nutrition side of things, because I know you're very big on nutrition and I love that. We're very eye to eye on those things. What are your best recommendations when it comes to just nutrition, for helping somebody naturally reverse their symptoms with PCOS?
I think, I mean, on the whole, the best place to start is with balancing the blood sugar, because that tends to be, as I said, a big proportion of women with PCOS have this insulin resistance type PCOS. And so we need to make sure that blood glucose is nice and stable, and that can impact the quality of the eggs as well. It can impact energy levels, impact our hormones. As such a huge impact on just getting that one thing right. And we do that by making sure our meals contain protein, healthy fats, and fiber. And we want these complex carbohydrates rather than rather than refined carbohydrates, which I like to describe as white fluffy carbohydrates like white bread and white pasta. Eating those, no, they're not sugar as such, but as soon as you consume them, the body treats it as sugar. It's sugar in the body, and we get this spike in blood glucose. And naturally, if you were to start the day with a bowl of cereal or some toast, naturally within an hour or two you're going to feel hungry, or you're going to get an energy crash, this high carbohydrate type breakfast. Whereas if we can start the day with, for example, eggs, something that's protein based and healthy fat based, it's a completely different impact on our blood sugar, our energy, and our weight as well. It's the best way to help lose weight or maintain weight, by making sure our blood sugar is nice and balanced. So I always think that's the best place to start. And again, it helps making healthier choices further along as well. And then, PCOS is an inflammatory condition, so we want to reduce inflammation in the body, whether you have this inflammatory type PCOS or not. But generally, for fertility, we need to be reducing inflammation in the body, and that's about again making sure we're getting plenty of leafy vegetables, for example, are wonderful foods to be having. Asking people, when I ask people, how often do you eat vegetables, and what vegetables do you eat? And quite often people maybe eat one or two vegetables, tends to be the same ones, maybe every night. And actually, things like broccoli are amazing. The compounds in broccoli that can help balance our hormone, help clear things out, help us detoxify, the fiber. I mean, broccoli is one of my heroes. You can have that every day, amazing, for example, but also getting lots of variety in the vegetables that you're having to help feed your gut microbiome, really important. Lots of nice oily fish. If you eat fish, that's fantastic as well in terms of reducing inflammation in the body. So having lots of fatty fish, for example, like salmon, mackerel, herring, all of those types of fish are great. And really reducing those processed foods and the refined foods. There's so many now in the supermarkets, aren't there? You pick up an item, and if you can't understand what the ingredients are, if you couldn't replicate that in your kitchen at home, you shouldn't be eating it, because it's chemicals that are not going to be helpful for your body and for your fertility and for your PCOS. So really trying to reduce those processed foods and sticking more to the meats, the fish, the vegetables, the plant proteins, that sort of thing, is going to be much more helpful for you. And avoiding anything that's faddy, avoiding restriction. It's very hard if you need to lose weight. For fertility, for example, we know being overweight or obese is going to likely impact your fertility and safety in pregnancy and things like that. So if you know that you need to lose weight and you've got a lot of weight to lose, it's very tempting to sort of follow a fad diet or a quick fix. And while that can work short term, it's not sustainable. Eating very little is not sustainable. It can harm your hormones. We store toxins in our fat tissue. So if we're releasing losing weight very quickly, releasing fat very quickly, these toxins get released into the body, and they can impact the cells of eggs and impact the quality of our eggs. So we want it to be steady, slow weight loss. And so it really is about consistency. Few changes that you can do daily, consistently, rather than tomorrow I'm not having any chocolate ever again, and I'm gonna be on this restricted diet. And it just doesn't work, does it? We fall off the wagon eventually. So it's what you can do on a daily basis, really.
100%. I'm so with you on that. I'm not about the restrictions. Like, even with my clients, like, we're not counting calories, we're not counting macros. That just becomes obsessive over numbers, especially for a lot of the high achieving women that we work with. They're programmed perfection, perfection, perfection.
Yeah.
Like, even some of our women who are like, it's just about the scale. I'm like, it's not just about the scale. Like, we have to break up with the scale. Like, this is where whatever that programming, that default method that you go into, like you're saying here, there's a lot of women that they'll follow these diet fads. And it turns out they're either not working as great as it is for somebody else. And kudos to that other person, but like, it's not working for you. Or it makes you feel worse, and all that extreme carb cutting can do way more damage to your insulin
Yeah.
and your body than anything. And so I'm all about preaching about those things. So definitely in alignment there as well. So a couple of things. You mentioned that you work with couples. We talked about this briefly in the beginning. Can you tell me a little bit more about working with a couple versus just working with just the woman?
Yeah. So basically, I mean, obviously it takes two to have a baby, right? So more often than not, it'll be the woman that approaches me and makes the inquiry. And I'll always say I offer free fertility reviews. So we'll have 30 minutes where we can chat to make sure I'm the right person for them, etc. And I can, explain how I can help them. And I always say, if a partner is involved, please bring them to the call, because they need to be invested in this as well. And I get the best results if I work with couples rather than with individuals on their own. And if it's a heterosexual couple, we know male fertility seems to be increasing, and we know that around 30% of cases the problem with the fertility is male factor, and in 50% of cases it's male. The male factor it's male and female basically. And I tend to find, because often people will come to me and they'll say, we've been trying for a few years and we've been told everything's fine and we don't know why it's not happening. We've been told we've got this unexplained infertility, which to me just means we don't know why you're not getting pregnant. It's not a diagnosis, is it? They just don't know yet. And in those cases, we need to look on both sides. There's no point in spending all the time and resources just investigating the female side and ignoring what's going on the male side. And I'm finding that in a lot of these cases, there is something going on the male side. We look at semen analysis and they may have been told by their doctor, oh, everything's fine, but actually it's not optimal. And this could be having an impact. Or I do a lot of microbiome testing. I do vaginal microbiome testing and now semen microbiome testing, which is quite a new thing out there. And often find that there's infections in the semen that could be impacting their semen quality. So it's really important that we work with both couples. And also, when I am just working with, say, the female partner, she might say, oh, I'll tell the husband what to do. But more often than not, he doesn't want to do it because it's coming from the female partner. And it's putting a lot of pressure on the couple if she's saying, well, Julia said to do this, that, and the other. Whereas if I can sit there and talk to the other partner and explain the reasons why, and they hear it from me, often the compliance is much, much better because they understand and they'll do it because of what I'm explaining. So it just tends to work better if they can work as a team and support each other rather than just one person doing all the work. And it'd be awful for one person to do all that work and then find actually most of the issues on the other side. Then you're wasting your time there. So
Yeah.
A lot.
And I don't know how it is over there. I know over here, a lot of, in the States, we have the blame on a lot of women. It's oh, well, it's your fault. He's fine. It's just your fault. And it's like, no. Like you said, it takes two to tango.
Yeah.
It takes
especially with miscarriage. And again, women think once they've had a miscarriage, it's definitely their fault because they were carrying the baby. But actually, we know up to at least 12 weeks, if not later, it can be due to male factor. This is a long period of time in pregnancy where the semen quality can have an issue. So it's definitely something that they both need to be working on for sure.
Yes, 100%. And I love that because it sounds like to me that even when you take on a couple, we're working on nutrition and supplementation for both.
Mm.
It's not just like you said, it's not just a one-way street. It's how can we work on this together? Because together you have to come together for a common goal, right? The
Yeah.
common goal is let's have a family, let's get started, let's do these things. And it's often a lot easier in some cases to kind of diagnose the root causes and the root issues, exactly what you do here, to make it easier for couples to say, well, I didn't have to go through all the rounds of IUI or all the failed attempts of IVF or anything like that. And I keep telling a lot of like our clientele, and the more that, we do these podcast episodes and the more that I talk to other women, it's like, it's the same stories, the same things. If we would have more physicians that would literally sit down and ask our people, patients, to hear and understand them, and instead of just slap a pill on things, right? If we can sit down and understand, like, how's your stress levels? How's your work life? How did you grow up? Like, if we were to ask all these questions and really get, more into even the emotional side of things, we'd have a lot different answers that we would come up with rather than here's a pill, you
Yeah.
know, or hey, you don't want kids, here's a contraceptive. We're not going to tell you
Yeah.
what's going to happen later to your body with it, but here's the issues that can come up. We're just not educating enough. It's quick, see them in, quick, see them out.
Yeah.
Um, so, and I love this. I love the work that you're doing. Like, your heart is all in it. You're very passionate about your clients and really helping them to have the success that you two had. And that's what we want for everybody, right? We want
Yeah.
everybody to have
Absolutely.
those successes.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, what are some supplements? So we've talked about nutrition. Are there any supplements that you suggest or things that you've done research on that you find are very helpful for people with PCOS? And even
Yeah. Sorry, say that again.
I was saying, even the male side, like what
Yeah.
are some things that they could do too?
So with supplements, just I mean, I mentioned it before, a bit of a caveat. So as I said, always food first, make sure that's looking really good. It really depends on supplements. What works for one person won't necessarily work for another. So I get a lot of people coming to me saying, my friend took this and she got pregnant. Should I take it? It's like, that's your friend. You're not your friend. Completely different. So no, you need to take what's right for you. And you need to take the right brand and right dosage, etc. for you, right quality. They vary massively. So it's really important to work with someone, that knows this area and knows what they're talking about when it comes to supplements, because they are powerful things. They're not medication, but they can still, do some things. So you need to be getting the right stuff there. But having said that, our soils are depleted. The earth is depleted. Our food isn't as nutritious as it used to be maybe 30, 50 years ago. So there is definitely a role for supplementation. When it comes to PCOS, so for women and PCOS, I really like inositol or myo-inositol. It's a naturally occurring compound in the body, and we get it a small amount in things like grains and fruit, and some legumes, but it can be really helpful for stabilizing blood glucose levels, can help to increase the quality of the eggs, and it can also help with weight management as well. So some women really find that it helps them with their weight if they take it. So inositol is a really good one, and improving the menstrual cycles and helping to regulate those as well if you take it in the right dose. So inositol is a good one. I think the B vitamins, making sure you get a good amount of the B vitamins, particularly vitamin B12 and folate. We know folate's really important in pregnancy and preconception to prevent the neurotube defects. So that's a good one. Vitamin D, really important for PCOS in particular. We have vitamin D receptors all over the body, and really important for reducing inflammation in the body. Also particularly important, women that are carrying more fat, their need for vitamin D may be higher. So it's important to assess, test your levels of vitamin D and see how much is needed, not just to guess what you might need. There is such thing as vitamin D toxicity where we can take too much. So we should know exactly how much we should be taking. Magnesium, I love for men and women. I like to call it nature's tranquilizer. Really good for sort of relaxation, for dealing with stress. If we're stressed, we burn off magnesium, use it up really quickly. and it helps around 300 enzymes to work properly in the body. So magnesium is a really good one. If you're struggling with sleep, you can take it sort of before bed, a particular form, and that can help with relaxation. So I'm often recommending it to the male clients as well. And then for both the men and the women, the omega-3 fats are really important. You can take those in supplement form. Obviously, we get it through our oily fish, but we don't want to be having too much oily fish because they accumulate heavy metals, so we need to be careful about that. So quite often it's important to supplement as well, particularly if you're, if you don't eat fish. And the omega-3 fats are really important for reducing inflammation in the body. They help to support the production of progesterone, so really important. Again, that can be lower in PCOS. And really important for sperm quality as well, and helping implantation. So omega-3 fats is a kind of one that I would always recommend. And generally for the male and the females, fertility is on the cards, and just a really good quality prenatal vitamin as well. Again, they vary in quality, but a really good male one, a really good female one should cover off quite a few of those things. And then maybe it's a case of topping up some areas depending on where there might be deficiencies. And we'll test to see where we need to add in additional supplements. So there's lots out there. I get a lot of people coming to me with literally a shopping bag of supplements they're taking, or a whole list. And quite often I'm stripping it down and saying, hang on a minute, you don't necessarily need to take all of that. It's costing you firstly a lot of money. And also our liver has to process every supplement we take. So we don't want to be putting extra strain on the liver. So it's important to assess what's right for that person and not take too much as well. Just get the right amounts, really.
100%. Look, I'll have ladies come to me sometimes from some of our like local naturopaths, and they're like you're saying, it's like they're when I ask them, what kind of supplements are you taking? And there's 15, and I'm like, how do you feel? Like,
Yeah.
your liver needs to process this. So the way that we say it all the time is supplementation is to supplement what you are currently doing correctly. And
Yeah.
to give it that boost. So I love that you take that nutrition spot first, and that you also individualize somebody's program to them, or their plan to them, because what works for one is not going to work for another, right? And some people may be able to take certain types of supplements while others, it doesn't work, or it's just not the right, treatment in certain situations, right? Same thing goes with homeopathy. I don't know if you're familiar with homeopathy as much.
Yeah.
So whenever because over here we've got like crazy allergies, everything else. So, and it's kind of the same thing of like, hey, why don't you focus on the things that work with your body? Because it's in addition to what you're already doing. It's to supplement,
Yeah.
you make it better, and to boost it, not to do instead of. So
Yeah.
I love that. I love that we have that same approach there. So I'm curious, as we kind of like get close to the end, wrapping up, what are some ways that people can find you? Do you have something today that you want to share? Or is there something else that you would like to tell the audience here?
Sure. So what I want to say is, it's kind of with all of this, there's so much that can be done. And it's one thing to know kind of what to do, but it's another to actually show up and do it. And that's kind of where I come in. And I'm actually currently launching a group program online called PCOS to Pregnancy. And it's a 4-week course which helps designed specifically for women to help them reduce their PCOS symptoms and optimize their fertility. And each week we're going through different areas of PCOS, finding out what their driver is. That's what we're going to do first of all, finding out what their root cause of PCOS is. We've got a really good fertility meal plan in there that's going to help them, guide them in how they should be eating, and really help them to, after those 4 weeks, to feel really good and on the path to supporting their fertility. So I've got that running on at the moment. And I also have a free ebook called From PCOS to Pregnancy, which talks a bit about some of the things we've talked about in this podcast. So it goes through all the foods that we want to be including in the diet to support fertility, some of the things we might want to be reducing, and also if you're looking to get a diagnosis, where to start and all that sort of thing. So that's all available. We can maybe put the links in the show notes in terms of getting those, but there's that to download. And if you're interested, my course is running at the moment. It's running up until I think about the 10th of May, and then we start from mid-May. So welcome to sort of find out more about that.
Awesome. So you're in promotion right now for this 4-week course.
Yes. Yeah, I am. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And you'll be able to work with people, so like all around the world. This is
Yes, so
virtual.
so the course is online, so anyone can join, from anywhere. We've got some live. There'll be live sessions, and they'll be recorded. So if it doesn't work with your time zone, they're all recorded. There'll be some short trainings. I'm making it short, so it's not overwhelming. Easy to fit in your lifestyle. And there'll be a WhatsApp group, so we can support each other. Any questions people have got, we can all come together in a WhatsApp group and post any time in that. And then when I work with my couples on the one-to-one basis, or women on their own, then I work with couples and women all over the world on my 3-month one-to-one program as well. So if people want more sort of in-depth support and testing and all that sort of thing, then that might be more for them.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I love this and I love today. Thank you so much for being with me. I think we'll have to have some more one-on-one conversations, do
Yeah.
some podcasts in the future, because now you got my brain pinging in a whole bunch of different directions. So we can definitely do that as well. Well, thank you so much. Where can people find you? I know we're going to post the link below. I'm going to put your bio in there and just kind of, share a little bit more about you. Where can they find you? What's the best point of contact?
So I'm on Instagram at Julia Young Nutrition. And then my website is juliayoungnutrition.com. So there's all the links. So there's a link there if you want a free fertility review with me to talk about working one-to-one, or details of the course, etc., all on my website. So you can do either to find me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for today. And guys, I think her program is going to be amazing and great education and information, especially for those of you who are struggling with PCOS or you're struggling in fertility. It's definitely, she's my go-to person. And I'm already I'm just super excited to have this relationship with you. And thank you today for your time, for being here.
Thanks very much for having me. It's been great.
Awesome. And I will catch you guys on the flip side for our next episode.